This podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors. Your San Diego County Toyota dealers. We've got what it takes. Fix Auto. Corky's Pest Control. And Lolita's Family of Restaurants.
Hey sports fans, welcome back to another episode of Laxcast. I am Christian Pedersen, joined as always by my expert analyst Tom DeMeo. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing great.
So Coach, another big week of games, another big week of discussion points, lot to talk about. So let's get straight into it with our game balls. 4 teams from San Diego getting wins outside the city. And now in a sport like lacrosse where there are certain areas that have powerhouses, these are always big wins. Torrey Pines got one. We got Poway with one. We've got San Marcos with one, which you actually got to see the team earlier, the Rocky Mountain team that San Marcos beat up.
Yes, I mean, San Marcos, I saw Coronado play San Marcos into overtime. Rocky Mountain into overtime. And it was a 10-9 game, just like the San Marcos game. So that tells me that San Marcos is right in that league with Coronado, which is, you know.
You were saying earlier before the show that they're a team that's kind of made that jump up in caliber.
Yeah, I mean, we played them last year in the D1 finals, and just, you know, looking at things and where they went as a program, I think they're certainly a team that's going to contend in the Open Division this year.
It's great to see that transition. And the last team that got that big out-of-city win was you guys taking down Murrieta. Tell us a little bit about that game.
Yeah, we played Murrieta Mesa on Saturday. It was a tough game. Those guys were 6-1, 7-1 coming in, and they've been playing. They returned everyone from last year, so we knew they'd be tough. We had a tough game with them out their place the year before, and you know, we just sort of jumped out. It was about 8-4 at halftime, and then we ended up winning 14-4. So we played really well in the second half and executed.
So what he's trying to say humbly is that the Eagles are starting to pick up steam a little bit. Now I want to give out kind of a co-game ball. I'm looking over here to my right because I don't know, Coach, if this was a direct reward for the big win that you got them these, or it's something about last year's championship. But SFC has some new uniforms. You're changing it up, going with the sleeveless look. Let's bring out our model here. You want to go ahead and strike your best pose. Look at these. Now this is what I was talking about. This is a little bit of a change in looks, but you know, it's kind of nice. How'd you guys arrive at this?
Yeah, it's the captains and the coaches got together, and we figured we're coming off a Division I championship, and we wanted to look the part. Is a word we use, a phrase, and so they came out really nice.
You like them?
So.
Yeah, they're really, really awesome.
Real excited?
Very excited.
You gonna try and wear these at practice today?
I gotta keep them. We gotta keep them clean for game day, though.
I gotta keep them nice and clean and fresh. I will let you get back to practice. Thank you very much for. You want to strike one like real ferocious pose? There we go. Screen cap that. Put that on your Instagram. Okay, so Coach, let's keep it on moving down the line to the rest of our game balls. We can give a shout out to Westview. They're another team like San Marcos that's making that jump up into a real competitive zone of play. They put up 14 on Eastlake, so shout out to them. Del Norte, they beat Pacific Ridge to stay not undefeated. They lost their first game to Poway, but it feels like everybody who's going to take on Poway the first game of the season after an Open Division title might not win that one. But you know, the Nighthawks, we saw them in the D2 finals last year, and now they are a undefeated since that first lost team. So you know, it might not be the jump up into the Open Division, but it's another team making a real positive stride in building the game here in San Diego County.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Grossmont, the Foothillers getting their first win of the season over Valhalla. Let's go on to the girls' side. Castle Park, first win in program history for the Trojans. Again, we're just talking about every week something new's happening here in the city. How cool is this to see?
It's great. I mean, the sport's growing, and when you start talking about first program wins, that means that, you know, we're starting to add these programs at schools that never had lacrosse before, and that's a great thing for everyone, not only in San Diego, but all of the West and in the country, just have more people playing lacrosse, and especially on the girls' side. The girls' side, I feel like we've been a little behind other regions, and, you know, even as close as Orange County. So I think it's great. You know, keep adding those programs.
Well, because it's something that we're seeing now at the collegiate level. There's lots of opportunities opening up. So it would make sense that at the high school and youth levels, kids maybe start shifting away from soccer or softball or everything where there's already a little bit of a log jam of people that you like, hey, I can go be good at lacrosse, get into Stanford, be good at lacrosse, get into somewhere, go get an education.
Yep, absolutely. And the great thing about the girls' game is the West has some Division I programs right here in San Diego.
The guys' game doesn't have.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I think it's good for both sides.
We'll talk about someone that's maybe a little more established in the girls' game. Torrey Pines, got to give them a shout out. Always love a rivalry win. They double up LCC 16-8. Last year's defending champs. Not really looking like they're struggling at all.
Not really. And I had the opportunity to watch them play against Coronado, and they handle Coronado like we expected, like I said last week, fairly easily. And they have a good system over there. And
they're methodical.
Yeah, and they move the ball upfield really well. And some of the girls, the skills are, at a different level than most of the teams out here. So they're gonna be a really tough team to beat. I'm looking forward to, I don't know if Poway and them meet at some point.
That'd be a lot of fun. and for those of you that might be the more casual lacrosse fan, there's a really big difference in the difficulty of passing at a distance between the guys and the girls' game with that net.
Yeah, because it sticks different. So, making a 40-yard pass isn't as much of a given as it is in the boys' game. So to watch teams like Torrey Pines and move the ball up the field, that, 30, 40-yard passes on the run.
It's
catching,
real nice
It's
to
impressive.
watch.
It's a lot of fun to watch.
Keeping going on the girls, shout-outs to San Marcos and Cat Barge. San Marcos, a legitimate team on both the girls and guys' side of the game. We're going to see them play some huge games down the stretch this season. And then finally, shout out to Hilltop for beating Mount Carmel. We mentioned the South Bay a little bit earlier as being an area where the game is still expanding. And the North County is similar, where it's maybe a little more established. So it's always interesting seeing someone from down there where they don't have a ton of kids that play nonstop year-round taking on a North County school.
It's great, and that's where we want the game to go in San Diego and in everywhere. Is we want more schools playing, more kids playing, and that's great to see. And that's just a sign of it right there. That Hilltop can go up and beat a North County team, and even just. To do that's just the first great step for them.
Absolutely. It seems the game really is truly catching fire here. One of America's fastest growing sports. Yep. And we are reaping all the benefits. Now, let's talk about our discussion section here. I'm going to kind of pose something out there as sort of a question to you, but you already know it. Question out to the fans. For high school lacrosse here in San Diego, you do the rankings for the postseason a little bit differently. You don't use CIF's power rankings, which seems to be kind of a cookie-cutter method that they apply to all sports. Instead, you use Lax Power, which we're talking about gives much more emphasis to go ahead and try and play anybody you want. Just keep it a close game or show that victory of margin that you are good enough to really beat that team. Do you think that the results by going that way have been good for the game and encourage growth?
Yeah, I think it has been. I mean, it was my first experience with actually using those rankings as a way that puts you in a playoff bracket, and we didn't do it that way 3 or 4 years ago out here, and I think there were a lot of unhappy people. But the past 2 years, I think it's been very close to accurate as someone who sees a lot of games and knows a lot of teams. And the one thing you can sort of go back and forth on, it's margin of victory, which it takes into consideration. So some teams may or may not play all their guys one game and only win by 5, and that affects other people. But generally, if you're putting teams up against each other and they're winning by 10 or 5, it's a great tool, and it has been great. I think it's the best seedings I've seen in a lot of different areas that I've been involved in.
So you mentioned the margin of victory wanting to be somewhere around 10. If you were trying to say on your side of the resume, though this is a positive, we won that one, and under 10 if you're trying to say, hey, that was a loss, but we didn't lose that badly. We only lost by 4, so hey, give us some credit for that.
Yeah, and that's what, the 10 is to encourage sportsmanship and not beating a team by 20. The 10's sort of the max that Lax Power will give you credit for. So, which I think is good because, you don't want teams winning games by 20 goals, and it happens, but you just wouldn't want that. It's not good for the kids. It's high school, and I think generally it's a good system.
So with encouraging such close games, I want to kind of close out our theme of growth in the game all day long. With this system, do you think that it's been good for encouraging teams to not just group in, only the North County is going to play each other, only the South Bay is going to play, or only D2 teams are going to play each other, and this, that, and the other? Have you seen a lot of positive intermixing? D2s are trying to play up. D1s are trying to play open division teams. Have you seen that happening positively?
Yeah, I think so far this season. I mean, even with us starting out with Cathedral and Westview taking on some of the teams they took on, and I think this season everyone's.
We talked about Del Norte took on Poway.
Yep, exactly. First game of the year, and that's that's not going to be an easy one going into it. But I think all the coaches out here are doing a really good job of scheduling tough games, and you look at this out-of-state game with Rocky Mountain. They come down here, they have 2 one-goal games, granted losses, but that's what they want. They don't want to go and lose by 10, and they want to have competitive games and get better. So I think those are good matchups for all the teams.
Speaking of big matchups, let's move now to our preview section for the week upcoming. You guys got a huge game against Rancho Bernardo. Tell me a little bit about what you can expect.
We're going to expect a good game. I mean, those guys play good. They play hard, and we played them last year at their place, and it was a close game pretty much all the way through. So, we're expecting it is our only game this week, which is good. So we have some time of rest after 3 games last week. So I'm expecting to be fresh and our guys to be loose. And, we played pretty well here at home this past week. So it should be a fun game.
So our next game, a couple of huge schools going at it in the top 5, Poway, LCC. I'm assuming at this point the odds on is that you gotta wait and see till anyone's going to beat Poway. Could this be the opportunity though for it to happen?
I think I know there's an opportunity. I personally think Poway is strong, but you're talking about 2 coaches who have coached together at Poway for some amount of years, so they know each other really well. They know the personnel, which just keeps games close, and so that's an interesting one. I hope I get to see that one, but I think it's going to be a good game. I do think Poway, at least from what I've seen numbers-wise, I haven't seen Poway play yet, but they've been putting up some pretty big numbers and some pretty good teams.
And kind of on an understated side of Poway is the goals allowed. Not a lot of teams scored double digits on them yet this season. They are really limiting the opponents. So that's going to be something where you look at SFC has a couple of games where they've really put up big numbers, but this is the litmus test, because if your offense can even come close to putting up 10 on Poway, you kind of got to walk away going, all right, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, and this one will be, I don't think it's going to be an extremely high-scoring game. There's 2 good goaltenders. Both coaches know what they're doing. I mean, Zach Burke's won 2 championships in a row, so they know how to win close games. And it should be a fairly low-scoring game, would be my estimate. But
sometimes I almost think that Coach Burke enjoys it a little too much. He gets that look on his face of like, yeah, we're going to win this one-run game. and so I personally am a fan of blowing teams out and coasting in the second half. Let's talk another game, Saints, Patrick Henry. They already played this season once. They're going to meet together again. Kind of a short gap to be playing 2 games. Tell me what to see.
Yeah, I mean, those games are odd. We had that last year with Bishops. I think we played them twice in like a week, or like we had 1 game in between. And those are odd because you just feel like you played them and you don't have any time to really change anything. And that said, they went to double overtime, so they know plenty about each other. I think it was Saints won in double overtime, 8-7. And I think this one, I don't know how Patrick Henry's fared since we played him, but I think Saints will be ready. They've had some guys sick and out, and so they're getting back at it. So I think it's gonna be a great game, though. Anytime you repeat a double overtime game, 6 days later, that's
absolutely. And that's why I was bringing it up, because you mentioned the transition time and being able to make adjustments. That's sort of an underappreciated aspect of this sport, because you might not see, they run this play, or their defenders were positioned in this way, but that's something that happens just as much in lacrosse as it does in football, baseball, basketball, any other sport. You got to game plan aggressively.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at tape from the beginning of the year versus the end of the year, I know, we'll have a whole new scheme on man up, or it happens. Coaches totally change tendencies as the season goes on when you start to realize what your talent is and who's playing well and who gets injured. And so yeah, it's kind of unique when it's that close to each other, because over the course of a week you might not change as much, but I'm sure both coaches will look to change some things.
They're going to be raring and ready to go. On the girls' side, let's talk about a huge game coming up this week, La Jolla Coronado. You said you're going to get a chance to be there, watch this one. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I mean, La Jolla they're a really good team, and Coach Kitty, she says they have one senior on the team this year, and Coronado has one senior. So it's pretty impressive. They're 6-0 with one senior. La Jolla is. So they're off to a great start. They beat some good teams. They really build it from the youth program up. I mean, I see Kitty out coaching the little kids, against my 7- and 8-year-old, 9-year-olds, and they're out there all weekend doing it. And I think that's paying rewards now. So hopefully Coronado, I have a couple of daughters on the team, they can hang with them, but La Jolla that's going to be a tough game for them.
But it's both a pair of really fast-paced offensive teams that know how to move the ball, so it should be fun to watch. I love that you ended on the note, though, of this is them reaping the rewards of youth programs. It seems that the entire theme of this week's podcast has been that the game is in the It's finally hit puberty. It's growing up. It's becoming a little bit of an adult game here. It's happening across the county. There's big wins that we're talking about. There's big games we're talking about every single week. Coach, thank you very much for checking in with us. Best of luck this week, folks. Go check out those games, and we will see you next week.